Craig Melvin has built a career on calm presence and measured empathy, the kind that invites viewers in rather than talking down to them. Yet, like many who came of age believing that professionalism meant leaving personal burdens at the door, he learned early how to compartmentalize pain, how to keep the voice steady and the posture upright, even when the body or spirit felt less cooperative than the broadcast demanded. And it is within that quiet discipline that the story of chronic illness, so often hidden, negotiated privately, and misunderstood publicly, finds a deeply human echo. Because long before any conversation about transparency or vulnerability became fashionable, Craig and his wife, Lindsay Zarniak, were already living the familiar rhythm known to countless couples in their 60s, balancing work, family, and the slow accumulation of physical realities that do not announce themselves with drama, but instead arrive in subtle limitations, persistent fatigue, and the need for constant recalibration. For a generation raised on the idea that you show up no matter what, chronic illness can feel less like an event and more like a companion you didn't choose, one that walks beside you through meetings, dinners, and celebrations. And Craig's instinct, shared by many men of his era, was to protect the world from seeing the effort behind the ease, to keep the smile ready and the questions answered, even when the cost of doing so grew heavier with time. Lindsay, equally accomplished and equally attuned to the pressures of public life, recognized this pattern not as denial, but as devotion, a reflection of a man determined to be reliable in a profession that rewards consistency and in a family that depends on his steadiness. And her support unfolded not in grand declarations, but in practical wisdom, in knowing when to encourage rest, when to push gently, and when to simply sit with the uncertainty that chronic conditions introduce into even the most carefully planned lives. What makes this story resonate so strongly with a 60 to 65-year-old audience is the recognition that chronic illness often lives in the margins, managed between obligations, and rarely discussed unless it becomes unavoidable. Because many in this generation were taught that personal challenges were private matters, to be borne quietly and addressed without complaint. And there is a particular dignity in that approach, even as it carries the risk of isolation, the sense that everyone else is moving forward with ease while you were silently negotiating pain, medication schedules, and energy levels. Craig's on-air composure, admired by millions, becomes in this light not just a professional skill, but a lived philosophy, one shaped by years of understanding that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to remain present despite it. And when moments of openness do emerge, when he speaks thoughtfully about health, balance, or the importance of listening to one's body, they land with greater weight precisely because they are measured rather than performative. Lindsay's steady presence underscores a truth many couples discover later in life, that partnership is less about shared spotlight and more about shared endurance, about being willing to carry the weight when the other is tired and to trust that the balance will shift again in time. And in this way, their story becomes less about celebrity and more about continuity, about the quiet heroism of showing up day after day, even when no one sees the effort it requires. Ultimately, the poignancy of Craig Melvin's silent struggle lies not in the specifics of any diagnosis, but in the universality of the experience, in the way it captures a generation's relationship with work, health, and privacy, offering reassurance that dignity does not diminish with vulnerability, and that life's later chapters, though marked with new challenges, can still be rich with meaning, connection, and purpose, especially when shared with someone who understands that the truest form of strength is not pretending you are untouched, but continuing forward with integrity, compassion, and a quiet acceptance of what it means to endure.